Hi, good afternoon. Manuel Fernandez, and I will be doing today's Blackboard clinic. And we'll be going over the topic of final exam, well, not final exams, but grade center, finals week, what to do for weight columns, import grades into e-services, and if you don't want to do that, also manually adding grades to e-services. Um, Now, is there anything you would like to, you have any questions on before we get started, or is that all right?
No, that should be good. I'm basically looking for grades. My grades are weighted grades.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and we'll talk about weighted grades and grade columns in general. All right. See, sandbox, share. Okay. Can you see this all right? I'm on Manny Sandbox, and we'll be heading into the grade center. So you'll go to course management, grade center, and most of this action will occur within the full grade center.
Mhm.
Now, one of the first things I would do if a faculty approaches me with trouble, any issues with the grade center, is to go look at column organization. Make sure that things are either in category or they're given in some sort of um, they have the correct weighted they have the correct point value. So the most common thing is an instructor comes to me and tells me that their weighted total points should be 1,000. They're at 10,000, 1,010 and 20, right? So then we would look at this, make sure everything's doing the math correctly. The other thing is weighted total is not equaling out to the correct correct value. So we would also look at this column, make sure that everything's in the correct value before it's weighted to begin with. But to create a weighted total column, we would go to create calculated column and then select weighted column, right? You can
Okay.
give it whatever name you want. For the name of simplicity, we're going to call it weighted total column. You can select the display, score, letter, text, percentage. We're going to go by score. And this is where most of the activity happens. You can add columns going by the column specifically or the category of assignments or tests or discussions. So for example, if you have a lot of discussions, as you can see, if you click on one of them, it'll tell you what things are included in this category. So in the category of test, I see quiz 2, chapters 5 through 8, a syllabus quiz, respond this lockdown browser quiz, etc. If I were to choose a category, doesn't matter which one, I can give it a point value. So say your tests were worth 25%. With the category option, I can also choose to include whether to drop the highest or the lowest grade, right? Same thing could be done with something like discussions, where you have a lot of discussions. You might have a students that, or you might want to give them a little bit of breathing room. Like a lot of discussions are hard to handle. Maybe you don't want to have every single one included because some of them are more difficult than others. Then you can select lowest, drop the lowest grade, or the other option is to use the highest value to calculate. But those are the two options we normally suggest. The next thing would be if I want to choose specific assignments. So this semester project could be another 25%. Then you have your brief proposal, could be 10%.
Mhm.
And as you can see, once I click away from the box, it tells you what the total weight is right now. You can't come back to this at any time. It's gonna warn you that this is not adding up to 100% yet. So let's just add like a couple more things and call it, call that done deal. Let's see, what do we have? So I'm gonna grab this short essay and this UN report. So each one's gonna be worth 20%. All right. And there you go. You have 100. You can choose to hide this column from students if you're not done working on the formula, or this is not exactly what students are going to see at the end of the semester because you might have extra credit you haven't yet added to the final value. If you have projects that are still taking a little bit of time to grade, you can always check to not show this to students and wait until the semester is completely over before you do. And then I would go ahead and click submit. And now I have a weighted total column indicating the following, right? Right here, telling me how things are going
So
for
does
at least.
the weighted column show that the grades have been dropped as well?
Does it show that the grades have been dropped?
Uh-huh.
It's not going to specifically highlight which ones have been dropped. No. What I'll do is, I mean, you can look at one single student and you see, for example, let's say this was discussions or tests. This was, all of them are tests. Let's say for the sake of simplicity. Then if you had all these tests and one of them was 5, and then you have a bunch of 15s, then 5 would be logically the lowest grade, and therefore would be the one that gets dropped. So you would have to see it from all the. You would just have to look at the columns and see. For each student would be different, right? Because some students are gonna get might have performed well in one of them on one of the discussions that somebody else did not, and then that's gonna be an issue. So it's not gonna tell you what it's just gonna vary per student, right? So that is the weighted total. That's how to create a weighted total. Now, one of the things I like to do or show faculty is you can add or create your own categories to make things easier for you. So what we would do is go to manage, go to categories. You can see these are all the default categories that always exist in Blackboard. And it shows you which assignments are there. But say, for example, I wanted to create a category called um, peer project. So for the peer project is three submissions. One of them is a group project. A lot of them are, some or more than 3 submissions, and some of it is individualized. You can choose to create that, and then you would add what would normally be an assignment. Say, for example, this has been this right here had been part of that peer project. That can get moved by going to column organization, and I can change the category of various items, say this one and that one. It doesn't really matter which one we select. Hold on, let me add a Professor Hashemi has joined us. And hello, Professor Hashemi, can you hear me? Give me 1 second. Give you match participants. Okay. I don't think she can hear. I don't think she has a mic right now, but she can see us. Hopefully, she can hear us. Well, let's see. We have other options. Chat. I'm gonna just send a quick chat and see if she. Okay. Hello.
Hello, I can hear you now.
Okay, you can hear me now.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I'm trying to get in, getting stuff going here.
Okay. Well, I had just gone over the weighted total column, and I was touching on the matter of how to modify categories for the sake of weighted total columns to make some of those grading easier. Um, so, was there a specific question? were you specifically coming to see about the weighted total column, or is there anything else you want to?
I'm not sure who else is here. I think is Vishali just joined us, maybe.
Yeah, she was here earlier. Yes.
I don't want to take everyone else's time. On the total column, on the weighted column, I think I've already, this is Hashemi, by the way. I'm sorry, I don't know if I identify myself or not, but I know that you see me as a yellow piece of paper.
Right, yes, ma'am. We hear you, and we see that it's identified. Yeah.
All right. So, what my question was on the was, I think you probably don't know the answer, but that's something we may want to ask Blackboard folks.
Okay. What
In
is?
the past version of the Blackboard, we used to be able to define a new column, call it calculated, and then decide what columns have how so much weight and come up with our own formula rather than just a simple average minimum, whatever that is that's now giving us.
There is the create calculated column, and there is the weighted column, and that allows you to create a percentage formula. Like I can make this.
Yeah, I know how to use that.
45, or I can make this 35, and as long as it adds up to 100.
Right. I understand that. But before, rather than doing it this way, which is the GUI way of moving columns over, we were able to actually write down our own formula. I suppose that's not an option because I asked William about that. I needed to know if we can do that. And I don't remember exactly why I needed to do it that way rather than this way because of the percentages. But anyways, do you know how, right now if you go to create columns, there is nothing that gives you the option, created, I'm sorry, the other one, the calculated columns.
Okay.
See, it doesn't give you, it gives you the average, gives you minimum, it gives you total. The only thing that we have is the weighted column, which replaced what used to be the formula. I don't see anywhere where we can define the formula, where we're bound to what we have here, which says, for example, quiz 1 is 20% or whatever that may be.
Okay.
So I don't think that you have that, do you?
Well, what do you mean by formula? I mean, the creating of given, the action of giving weighted values to each column or category is a formula. It's a calculation that takes place.
I agree with you, and I'm not going to go there because I can't remember what was the specifics that I needed to get done.
What's it
more of, rather than just taking the column and have it as a percentage, I need to do something with several columns. For example, I'm just saying this. For example, it was quiz 1 plus quiz 2 plus quiz 3 divided by 3 multiplied by whatever number. So now this tells me that I need to give the quizzes, each one of them, a certain percentage for this to happen. What I wanted to do was take the total of quizzes, for example, and the total of quizzes is 25% versus, so take, for example, from here, take quiz, test 1, test 2, whatever you have.
Okay. Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
I see what you mean. Yes, that's currently not possible. There's no way to add like a multiplication factor or subtraction or addition to those columns. That would only be doable by working offline and going into the top right corner.
But we had that before as a capability, and what I suggested at the time was because they already have the code for it. For the next version of Blackboard, if they would give us that opportunity to be able to do a customized formula versus the can that they have here.
Right. That is, that's certainly something that we can bring up with them.
Yeah, I like for us to do that because I think at the end of the day, I ended up downloading everything, doing it on my Excel, and then just one by one, moving it from my Excel to Blackboard and so forth. But if you could do it within Blackboard where you have a specialized, customized variation on theme on coming up with the semester average, if you will. That would be very good. We don't have it, so I won't take time on that.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't have that design, but I'll go ahead and well, when we look at the opportunities to talk with Blackboard, we'll bring that up for sure. So where I was last, where I left off was the ability to create categories for, yeah, the creation and use of categories for the things other than the default standard is a good way to streamline some parts of your grading. So say, for example, some discussions are going to be part of a journaling exercise. You have them go outside and take some notes and then come in and do a discussion about what they saw. That wouldn't really be a discussion. I mean, it would be a discussion at the same time as a journaling assignment. Then that category can get modified to include specific things. And that way, say you have 3 of those type of journaling discussions, that way those can have their own value rather than being summed up with the rest of the discussion boards. That might be more relating to text or relating to material that you might have discussed in class. That's just one way to look at it. Say you created a set of 4 or 5 assignments for a specific project, and that specific project is worth 25% of the grade. It's a substantial amount. You might not want to have that set of assignments be lumped together with all the other assignments in the class. And it might be, depending on how many columns you have, it might be difficult to find all of them in just going by individualized columns. Assignment project 1, assignment project 2. So you can create something like a semester project. We had some semester project, and that allows you the ability to organize. You can also create a description that explains your reasoning for having this. And then once you have created those sort of categories, custom categories that carry over from semester to semester, you can go to column organization and then select whichever assignments are pertinent, right? And then move those by going to change category, and you can find the new category you created and then click submit. And that change will take effect. So then when you have weighted total columns, you can work off of those new categories that make your calculations more efficient. So now we have a semester project that has 2 assignments, and that big project is not worth 50% of the grade. Then there you go. You have that amount of points. So that's just one example of modifying and getting your grade center the way you like it. You don't have to be limited by the categories that come with the default, and it allows you to plan ahead. If you set this up before the start of the semester, it allows you to plan ahead and make sure everything's correctly aligned before the end of the semester. The next thing I wanted to talk about is how to do an automated import to e-services. This this specifically applies to BB1 because we're self-hosting at this moment, and I think BB2 is still in the process of trying to find that solution. But BB1 has the ability to create a regular column. We would have to call it final grade. That's the way it has to be called.
Hold on for a second. I'm taking notes.
Yes, ma'am. I can slow down a little bit.
Thank you, darling. I appreciate that.
No problem.
As I say, I'm not as fast as you used to be, but I'm faster than tomorrow. So as long as you are there to help us out, it is great. And especially I need this to happen since I've got many sections to turn grades in for.
That's right, and this is one of the reasons we have this available. It
All right.
gives us it gives faculty the ability to upload their grades rather quickly once you get
So,
this in line.
so,
So
so let me start off. Vashali, if I am stopping you from asking, please tell me to be quiet, okay?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay, so we're in the grade book and you just create a grade column. It's not a calculated one, just a grade column, right?
that's correct, ma'am. Just a regular old grade column. That's all you need.
Got it,
Because
okay.
what makes this column different from any other is the column name has to be final, capital F, grade, capital G. You don't have to have points possible because it's really the most important thing is that the primary display is going to be text.
Hold on, primary display.
That's really the two most important things are it's called final grade and it's text.
Got it.
All right. So as I mentioned, there doesn't have to be a points possible, and it doesn't have to be included in the grade center. So I'm just going to go ahead and click submit.
Not included in the grade center.
Doesn't have to be. And the reason why it wouldn't need to be included in the grade center is because it's going to be the column that actually exports your grades rather than adds to the grade. So it's
Got it.
not necessary for that.
Got it.
Now, let's say I actually had students that participated and answer questions, and so I'm just going to go ahead and give them A, B, C, D, and F, and I as an incomplete if necessary. So this student got an A. That's one of our, that's a user support staff. This one did very poorly, and so on and so on. This is
Well, actually, F is important because if you remember, F is the one that's asking you for the dates where they last attended.
right. That would be through other means other than this, but this is just for the grades itself. If you have to put that in, there's ways to do that. That would be the reports or in the evaluation area, or unless it's too complicated, it would be in the last access column, which comes default with every single. So last access here is default, and this would show you when the person last logged in.
Okay, let me ask you my question. Maybe I just jumped the gun. I see what you're doing. The final grade is what we figure out what the final grade is going to be, and we're going to export that into a template into outside where the grades are supposed to go. So perhaps that's where we put the last date of attendance.
Yes, that would be in the e-services. That's where you put the last grade of attendance.
So when we export it from here, it is not a submission. It is just fill it up, save for us to go through it, verify it, put the dates in there, and then submit.
Yes, you fill this out so you don't have to go through the bubbling process in e-services.
Okay.
I can't just as I cannot demonstrate the e-services part. I will just move this document that we have that has some images for it. But what happens is with this final column in your class, it recognizes it, and a new button will appear on e-services in the class roster and e-syllabi area that says import grades. And by having this as text, it will go ahead and bubble in the correct letter at the end of any services. So instead of having two tabs on your browser open at the same time and having to switch back and forth, you just click on that button in e-services and it will recognize this final grade column, grab A, B, C, D, E, F, A, B, C, D, F, and
so is it by row column or is it by student ID? For example, this first one that you have.
It would be student ID. It's just, it would be this, each row is assigned, it's depending on a student. So this is hypothetically one of your students, then, you know, this will get recognized as this person being the correct person in e-services. There's not going to be a mismatch.
Well, my question is that in the grade book, we have the W's, which are no longer in Blackboard. So, for example, John Smith, who took the course for a while, and then he dropped the course, he's no longer in my uh, Blackboard. But his grade is still out in the e-services because that's where the W is.
Well,
So
the W,
now I have John Smith there, but not here. My question is, when we export this total grade, does it realize that it needs to skip over John Smith, or
yes. I would say yes, it would skip over the person that you didn't put a grade for. Because this needs to be, uh, if if this was left blank, then the person that it's that matches this ID in the grades in the e-services area, if this was left blank, then it would just be a blank grade. So you want to make sure that this is fully filled in. And if you cannot fill it in, then that's okay, because then you can do the manual filling in e-services. But ultimately, say we had all this added in, then we could go to the e-services. So we would go to e-services. This is about as far as I can get to. So I would click on that. I would log in with your username and password. You would log in with your username and password, and then you select the semester, and you will see this buttons now that say import grades from Blackboard.
I got it.
Right? When you click on import, it can take a little while, but once it's done, you'll have the fully submitted grades, and you can click continue, and then this is going to show like this. The students are going to show, and you can modify them. If you accidentally typed B instead of a C, you could rebubble it in, and then finally complete by saving and submitting. Like save, once you're completely done, then you can click on save grades.
Can you up your screen? Let me see if there's any W's there.
I think it is A, B, C, U, I, P, and S. I don't know what those mean specifically.
The W would be where the grade is.
Well, these are all the ones available. I think for, if you have students that have incompletes or W's, you could bubble them automatically, manually, but this is ultimately primarily for students that have completed. So if you put in text values for every student that got an A, a B, a C, or a D, then that would be enough to save you some time.
True. I guess what I am very concerned about, I'm trying to get to my roster so I can show you what I'm talking about. I'm not sure even if you can take over my machine or not. My concern is that, you know, I have several very large classes, 50 plus students, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So if out of 50 students, let's just say one of them, somewhere in the middle, student number 20, he or she has dropped the course, he or she does not show on my roster anymore. It's now 49. When I export the grades, I'm exporting grades for 49 people.
Right.
My concern is, it seems like if the import and export would be keyed on the student ID number, the answer is that's a one-for-one mapping. Therefore, a student who did not have a grade in my Blackboard will be now left empty or pre-formed with W in the e-services. But if that's not the case, now my student number 20 is John Smith, who has dropped the course, and all the grade from that point on would belong to the next person, and I will be shown at the end.
It's most likely that the student will be left blank. I don't think we've ever had that issue where a student gets the wrong grade assigned to them. And this is, it's not a solve all. This is just to make this a little faster for you. So you would still have to log in and check. I mean, you have to,
Of course.
as the process of importing the grades to next takes you to the bubble in page. So it ultimately you will have to just either a cursory glance or just a double checking thoroughly that the students have not been skipped. Although that's not, I don't think that's a concern. That hasn't happened. I don't believe.
Okay, well, let me, I'm trying to put into my
So I think I'm going to log off. I think I need a little more help, and I'll come there and get my help that I need.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, that's fine.
So I'm looking at, let me go to one of my big courses. Here we go. Let me just check and see. So I'm looking at my system, and it doesn't have that block in there with the final grade.
Does your class have a final grade column?
Not yet. Shall I
Okay.
make one in there?
You have to.
Okay, hold on.
Do you know what each student's gonna get for the final grade?
Yeah, they actually have that. Give me 1 second. Let me get into that course and make that final grade while I have you on board. Thank you so much, by the way. I've been wanting to do this for
My pleasure. Happy to help.
semester and just hasn't happened. Okay, so now here I am. Let me get to the course.